Hello and welcome back to Alice Talks Football and welcome back to another live Manchester United news, transfer news, takeover news and general update show where we discuss all the news. Today we've got a few stories coming in. Jadon Sancho has been spotted back at Carrington in Manchester United training. Has he apologised to Ten Hag? Is Jadon Sancho back? We will be discussing that. Reports coming out that Marcus Rashford is going to be dropped ahead of tomorrow's game. Some pundits are coming out saying they feel sorry for Amrabat, and apparently Ten Hag treated Amrabat badly by playing him left back, which I think is just silly. I think people are just trying to cause drama. But of course, what are we at the moment? The Kardashians of the football world, Drama FC, Negotiation, Tactic FC, PR Spin FC, and there's so many stories going about, there's so many leaks going about, and I have to say, in all honesty, it's just so boring. The leaks, the news, every single story that comes out, you have to take it with a pinch of salt and all of this. But there's some dressing room leaks coming out. There's some reports that Bruno Fernandes is very unhappy with his teammates, the attitude they're displaying. Reports coming out that the dressing room is really, really toxic. Apparently a member of staff has said this to people. And obviously Erik ten Hag is not allowed to criticise the players. The players get frustrated if Erik ten Hag criticises them. He has to take a new approach. And then we've got some more stuff about transfer news. Sancho to Dortmund, Manchester United looking at Jurrien Timber's brother, and of course takeover news that apparently the takeover is close. Apparently, so Jim is close. Let me ooh. One sec, throat's dried up. Some takeover news basically suggesting if Alice's throat wants to dry up, that Sir Jim is close, la-di-da, 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 which I think is, again, a tactic to try and get a bigger bid out of Qatar. So anyway, guys, please do hit that like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. Subscribe down below, share the video, and let's get into the live stream. Snowflake FC as well. And any apologise from Sancho is worthless at this point, considering the time that's passed. Don't see a way back. And you know what? I do agree with that. Throat had gone just 2 minutes into the live stream, so I do apologise for that. But let's get into the Sancho news, Snowflake FC, all of this news. So there's a few stories on Sancho today. Interesting thing is that there is Jadon Sancho spotted returning to training. Can't really see him, but it is Jadon Sancho essentially, and Luke Shaw, which is positive that Luke Shaw's on the way back, obviously coming back from injury. He won't be back till December. But Jadon Sancho was spotted in training today. A few people have said some things. There's some suggestions that he may have apologised to Erik ten Hag, then he might be allowed back to United training. But I think even if Sancho has apologised to Ten Hag and is now back in training because he's apologised, I think Alex makes a good point. Has it gone too far? I think it's at the point now with Jadon Sancho where he had a month to apologise. We've needed him. He's dropped. We didn't have Anthony. It's been really toxic. There's been leaks coming out on his side, or his camp side, definitely. That the stories have been toxic. I'm at the point, really, with Jadon Sancho that I think, the apology take 4 weeks. It's a bit embarrassing. I think it's a bit embarrassing on Sancho's side. Look, I get it. You're annoyed. You were dropped. You feel like you've been treated unfairly. I get it. You're annoyed, but you're on £350,000 a week. You just do what the manager says and you get on with it. And instead of dropping, you go, I'm going to work even harder. I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to make you like a fool, is what you should be saying to Ten Hag. Like Wan-Bissaka did when he never got a minute over Delow. So I think with Jadon Sancho, although he looks to be back in training, looks to be back in Carrington, it's definitely going to take a while. I don't think he's going to all of a sudden be in the lineup tomorrow. Not at all. But it feels like it's gone too far that Sancho's got to work 10 times harder. If he'd apologised 3 weeks ago, he'd still have to do a bit of work. But I think the fact that it's dragged on and on and on, I think this guy has got to work, 10, 20 times harder when he comes back into the squad as well. And look, there are rumours of him going to be Borussia Dortmund, having a pre-agreement there with Borussia Dortmund. But from what I'm hearing on Borussia Dortmund's side, that is not the case. They don't actually have any kind of agreement with Sancho. They just had a few conversations as well. Do you think the Glazers will leave? We'll discuss that in a second as well. Do you think Sir Jim Ratcliffe is... No, I think I don't trust Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Alice, you know that Sir Jim Ratcliffe's new nonsense bid is more illegal than his last. Class B shares can only be transferred between Glazer family members unless full sale. So, again, shareholders will sue. Potentially, but I think he won't be just buying out the Glazers at 25%. I think he'll be buying out 25% across the whole thing. I think he's working. So Jim is working on a few things to make his deal possible, which is annoying. And again, I'm not interested really in Sir Jim Ratcliffe because I don't want him to be the owner. And I don't know loads about the finances of it, but I know Sir Jim Ratcliffe's been doing a lot of work reconstructing his bid where he can be a minority offer, but bits will go to the Glazers, bits will go to current shareholders. But what makes it interesting is Sir Jim Ratcliffe's going to give 1.5 billion for 25%, which is 6 billion overall. But the 25% he's giving, only about 1 billion of that is going to go to the Glazers, and then the other 500 million will go to the other shareholders, what I believe, otherwise he'll be sued. Is 1 billion enough for the Glazers to stay here longer? Is it enough to do the stadium? I mean, if they want to do the stadium on the cheap, the facilities on the cheap, yeah. But, you know, is the 1 billion enough? It might be, it might not be. But I think, to be honest, Darcy, Kevin, Brian Glazer won't like that. I think Sir Jim thinks he's all confident now. I think Sir Jim is all confident. I think with the news coming out, I don't know what's going on with my throat today. Oh, I think with the news coming out, it suggests that Sir Jim's quite confident. He's gone, I was going to give them 100%, then I went to give them 70%, then I went to give them 50%. I'm now going to give them 25%. I'll do anything. Ephraim and Joe, I'll do anything. Ephraim and Joe, accept my bid. Big. I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe has made himself look like a monk. I generally do. I think I'm a Man United fan, but I'm going to keep the Glazers here and beg for the club and bend over backwards and give Sir Joe and Abraham what they want for the club. I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe is a bit confident now with his reconstruction of the bid, according to news. Or news could be putting out that he's confident to try and scare Qataris into putting a bigger bid. But I actually, and maybe this is just me, I don't think Darcy, Kevin, Brian Glazer, I don't think they want Sir Jim Ratcliffe. They're not going to get much money. Sir Jim, they get completely brought out. Sorry, with Qatar, they get completely brought out. The 4 Glazer siblings want go away United. Don't want anything to do with it. 4 of the 6 Glazer siblings don't want anything to do with United. So if Sir Jim Ratcliffe's coming in, giving them less money to stay, I don't know if all 6 Glazer siblings will agree to that. So as confident as Sir Jim Ratcliffe looks on his side, I don't think a lot of the Glazer siblings will agree to the Sir Jim Ratcliffe's bid as well. Yeah, for me, I think it's bad. People saying sell Onana. I'm not interested in selling Onana. I think it's crazy to want to play it out after a few games as well. Jim is an old man. I don't believe he has any intention to gradually increase his stake. Reports about 6 years later be pushing 80. Yeah, and this sounds horrible, but like the guy, you might not be around in 6 years. Like I know that sounds horrible, but he's really old. He's buying the club so we can own the club in 6 years when he will be 80. And, you know, I don't know, you know, he could live to 250 years old. But my point is, I do think it's a bit like, surely if you want United, you just go all in. You get the club now, you get the power, you get the control. You know, for me, I think you're right. I don't get why he would want to let the Glazers and then have full control in 6 years when he's 80 years of age. It's ridiculous. For me, what I actually think it is, to be honest, is Sir Jim Ratcliffe is desperate because he can show off if he's got Man United. He can go, ooh, and show off if he has Man United. But what I really think it is, in all honesty, is I just think that the Glazers, they want Qatar to up their bid. They know Qatar could bid 6 billion like that. And I still think, and the Qatari camp have come out, Qatari sources have said the Qataris think this Sir Jim Ratcliffe's tactic is a game. The Qatari sources have spoken. They are not going to up their bid. They think everything that Ratcliffe is doing is this big game. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Glazers are using Ratcliffe as a pawn in their game. And I don't think the Glazers take Ratcliffe particularly seriously. Oh, you know, changing his bid from 70% to 50% to 25%. They know he's desperate. They know he's a mug. You know those boys who would like obsess over a girl and pretty much stalk a girl and message a girl non-stop, you know, and if a girl like ghosted him, you'd be like, why you ghosting me? Why you ghosting me? Meshing her loads. The girl's never going to go with that boy because he's annoying and he's a beg. But if there's the boy that acts like he doesn't care about the girl, normally the girl goes for the boy that acts like he doesn't care and is not interested in her, rather than the boy that is obsessing over her. And that's how I see it, which is a bit of a bad analogy, but that's how I see it with Sir Jim and Qatar. Qatar are kind of acting like they don't care. This is their offer. Take it or leave it. We're not desperate. We're not begs. So Jim is acting like a beg. I think, you know, if it was going to go to Sir Jim, it could have gone to Sir Jim a lot earlier because he's basically been begging for it. I think they want Qatar. They realise that Qatar aren't a beg. They're going to bend over backwards like Sir Jim. And I think they're doing everything they can to try and see if they can get 6 billion out of Qatar because they know that's easy money for Qatar. And that's what I think they're trying to do. Part of me does worry if their intention is to sell, but I just think they want more money out of Qatar as well. And what is the 1.5 billion even going to do for us? We know they won't clear the debt. They aren't investing it into infrastructure. It's all a waste of time. And that's the thing. What will they do with 1.5 billion? And also, I know Sir Jim Ratcliffe's desperate for the club, but why would you give the Glazers 1.5 billion to have no power in the club? What, like, do you trust the Glazers with 1.5 billion of your money? Seriously, like, who on earth would want to give the Glazers 1.5 billion to invest in the club? You know they're going to spend it on absolute useless stuff. You know they're not going to spend it on anything useful. For me, it's crazy. You giving the Glazers 1.5 billion for what? For absolutely what? That's what I think about it as well. Madness. Now, I do want to get into a few other stories because I don't want to spend this whole show talking about Takeover because I think it's getting boring now. But Alice, what are your thoughts on if Arteta doesn't deliver this season? Should he go? I think he's had long enough, but it depends with injuries and other things as well. But I think if he doesn't get top 4, then he should probably go. But I'm more about giving managers time. But Arteta's obviously had his years now. To be honest, I think it's a difficult one. I think you can only really assess a manager come end of the season, whether they did a good job or not, or mid-season as well. Will the shareholders go for this deal? Potentially. The shareholders want Qatar. The four of the 6 Glazer siblings want Qatar. The fans want Qatar. Abraham and Joel want anything that's going to give them more money. And that is the I will tell you this on the Takeover, because I'm not going to talk about it much longer. The Takeover is all about money. It's all about money. Abraham and Joel want what's going to bring them the most money. And they know that Qatar's 6 billion bid is the most they're ever going to get for the club because it's worth nowhere near 6 billion. We are absolutely shambles off the pitch. We've got a lot of issues. We need a big squad rebuild. The stadium's falling apart. There is debt, the facilities, the injury crisis. Everything is a big mess at this club. And they know it's not worth 6 billion. And the bigger the mess on the pitch, the less and less it's worth. So they want 6 billion. The only hope of getting 6 billion is getting Qatar to up their bid, which Qatar don't seem to be doing. So they're going to be using Sir Jim Ratcliffe to get Qatar to up their bid, is what it seems like. Either the Glazers think, okay, we're going to accept a minority offer because obviously the Super League could be coming in a few years, the new Champions League format, this and that. They're either going to accept a minority offer because there might be things happening in football in the next few years, which could mean the value of the club could be worth 10 billion, which I still think is unlikely because with how badly they run the club, I think we'll be mid-table in a few years if we continue the way we're going. Or they're going to be like, yeah, we're not going to make much more money out of this club, but we want to get 6 billion. It's one of those things where if they think there's potential to have a big cash grab in a few years, they might stay and accept the minority offer. But I think with the way we are off the pitch, I think with the problems, I think with the fact that the 4 siblings are desperate to get out, I think they want to sell the club, but they want 6 billion because they're greedy. And that's what I really think is the truth behind all of that takeover news as well. And look, I'm not happy with Sir Jim Ratcliffe. He claims he's a Man United fan. He tried to buy Chelsea. He claims he's a Man United fan. He has a Chelsea season ticket. He's a Chelsea season ticket holder. He claims he's a Manchester United fan, big Man United fan, but he's been absolutely sucking up to the Glazers and we're willing to keep the Glazers here to buy the club in 6 years. When 1, to be honest, he might not be around, and 2, we can't afford to wait 6 years. Look how far behind we are from City, Liverpool. We're behind Spurs now. We're behind Arsenal now. Villa are going to be a better team than us. Newcastle are a better team than us. Look how far behind we are. We can't afford to wait 6 years. We need a full sale now, and Sir Jim Ratcliffe's not going to allow that as well. People saying Ratcliffe could be good if he puts the right people in the right positions. Potentially, like Ratcliffe could be an improvement on the Glazers. I think he will be an improvement on the Glazers, but it's the fact that he would wait maybe 4 or 5 years to actually be able to implement any change and have some power. We can't wait 4 or 5 years. And even if Ratcliffe is the next owner, he could run the club a bit like FSG or Arsenal's owners do, where you've got the right people in place and we have a good footballing strategy and all of that. He could, but at the end of the day, he's not clearing the debt. He's not bringing in a new stadium. He's not got football first. He's putting more debt to buy the club. He's keeping the Glazers here. The thing that's frustrating about it is we see what's happened with Newcastle in 2 years with good owners. And look, obviously, I'm not saying, you've got to look at Newcastle 2 years ago, boom, relegation. They're now winning Champions League games. They've had a really good rebuild. They've not spent hundreds and hundreds of millions. They've brought in the right players. They've got Dan Ashworth from Brighton to really help with their strategy. You see what the difference in Newcastle in 2 years with the right ownership. For me, I want owners that priority is Man United, putting United at the very top. And if I thought that was Sir Jim's ambition, I would want Sir Jim, but I don't think that's Sir Jim's ambition. I think he wants Manchester United so he can say he owns Manchester United. I think it's more of an image thing for him. I think, and I think he's exposed that. The fact that he was going to buy 100%, then 70%, then 50%, realised he couldn't compete with Qatar for the full sale. It's now going for 25%. I think it's just an ego thing with Sir Jim, in all honesty. Thank you very much, Nick, for the super chat. Where's the 6 years from? All the reports I've seen as the first call out would be in 2026. So I read something that he would get a bit more in 2026, which is 3 years. And then it would fully have it in 2029, which is 6 years. But again, to be honest with this 6 years thing, I think no one really knows the precise times. I'll be honest, I think it's one of those where no one actually knows if it's 2026, 2025, 2024, 2029. Again, I think NDAs, everything's up in the air about the structure of Sergeant Ratcliffe's bid, but essentially he would slowly buy out the club as well. And look, I think Sergio has a minority stake. He's not really going to have a say anyway. Anyway, now I do want to talk about a few things. There's a few dressing room leaks coming out. Bruno Fernandes is reportedly unhappy with some of his teammates, and there are a few interesting stories going about. So I do want to get into these stories, and then I will get back into the live chat because I want to discuss Ten Hag. I want to discuss some things Gary Neville said, and more. So make sure you hit that like button if you haven't already, and of course subscribe down below if you are new as well. So today, a report came out from Alex Crook saying that Erik ten Hag is taking a softer approach to try and rescue Manchester United. He feels confidence amongst his players is so low that he has become reluctant to show his anger in the dressing room for fear of doing moral damage to morale. It was also said that despite the dismal results, Erik ten Hag does retain the backing of the Manchester United hierarchy, who are not keen on having another managerial change at this stage. Erik ten Hag has a difficult job approaching because players are very fragile and take criticism the wrong way. Erik ten Hag has got to be soft with his players, but he's frustrated with the poor body language that his players have been showing and representing on the pitch, particularly when they get a goal down. The players' confidence is at an all-time low, and Erik ten Hag cannot be angry with them because it will upset the players and it will damage morale. This, for me, is a bit embarrassing, really. I think the leaks are a bit embarrassing. I think, anyone watched the David Beckham documentary? I've not watched it yet. I've watched clips of it. But we all know about Fergie. Fergie was ruthless. If you weren't good enough under Fergie, he was ruthless. The way Fergie treated those players when he was angry, he was angry. And what did Fergie achieve? Everything. What is it about this generation being so soft? We have a generation of crybabies who can't be offended, who can't be criticised, who can't be told off. They whinge, they cry, they go on strike against the manager. It's absolutely embarrassing. You know what? The players have been a disgrace. I don't care. Maybe I'm mean, maybe I'm horrible, but I look at how Fergie managed back in the day. I look at how Roy Keane was back in the day, and I think we've gone soft. I really do think we've gone soft. The players have not been good enough. Their performances have been a disgrace. And I think Erik ten Hag now has to build up confidence and not shout at them and be nice to them because the players won't like that. But surely Erik ten Hag should be having a go at the players, scaring them like Fergie did, putting them in their place, telling them what they've done is not good enough. Because they're on all this money and they're doing the most simplest mistakes. They're losing concentration. They're not doing work off the ball. It's lapses in concentration. I hate the fact that Erik ten Hag has now got to be soft on the players because our mentality is so weak. We will not win major trophies if our mentality is, you can't criticise me. The mentality is, the manager can't get angry at me. It ruins my confidence. For me, if someone gets angry at you, you should use that as constructive criticism to motivate yourself to want to prove them wrong, like Ronaldo did. Ronaldo used to get all sorts of crap from Roy Keane, Fergie, Gary Neville when he was an 18, 19-year-old, and he knew that they were at the top and he wanted to be at the top. So he took on the crap that they gave him and used it as constructive criticism. But we have a dressing room where, our players all of a sudden can't be insulted. And as IQ Insane said, it is becoming player power FC at United. The players have too much power. And, that's what I don't like. As soon as things go wrong, leaks, the players, you can tell, aren't playing for the manager. And you know what? The big wages, the poor infrastructure at the top of the club, it's all results to it being player power FC. And the interesting leak that came out was this one. It said the atmosphere inside Manchester United dressing room among staff is now toxic. Reports and leaks have come out saying that the atmosphere in the Manchester United dressing room has reached a new level of toxic. And now there's even reports coming out that Bruno Fernandes is frustrated with his teammates. Bruno Fernandes is frustrated with his Manchester United teammates who he doesn't feel are giving 100% and enough in a very toxic dressing room environment. And I think, a lot of these leaks you do have to take with a pinch of salt. A lot of media outlets, particularly Samuel Luckhurst, as soon as things get negative, they like to say dressing room source said this, inside source said this, and they love to do an article slamming ten Hag, slamming the players, saying this, saying that. I think with the leaks, with a lot of the news that comes out, I think a lot of it you do have to take with a pinch of salt because media love negativity at United. They can write all these stories that Bruno had a fight with this player, McTominay had a fight with that player, Erik ten Hag said this and that, this player said this and that, the dressing room is toxic, the players don't back ten Hag, poor Sancho. I do think when things are negative, there are all these awful leaks that come out. But sometimes I do look at the leaks and I go, is this true or not? I think the leak that Erik ten Hag cannot criticise Man United players is true. I think the leak that Erik ten Hag is concerned about his body language on the pitch is absolutely true, because we've seen it. But I think these leaks coming out that Bruno's furious with this teammate and that teammate, that Marcus Rashford's been upsetting coaches in training. I think some leaks are just targeted. I think this whole the players are turning on ten Hag leak. Look, the mentality they're showing isn't great. But again, I do think it's one of those made-up stories as well. And it's frustrating because I feel like no other club has this. No other club has leaks left, right, centre like Manchester United do. No other clubs have these stories coming out, these PR spins. And this is another reason why I want our owners gone. Because the media and the stories and the spin, and we are just drama. When things go bad at United, they capitulate. It's not like Newcastle lost 3 games in a row. A few people in mainstream media were saying, oh, I think that Newcastle are going to be exposed this season, this and that. But when Newcastle lost 3 games in a row, was there dressing room leaks coming out? Was there reports that Eddie Howe lost the dressing room? Was there toxic media coverage on them? No. When Man United lose 3 games in a row, everyone's calling for ten Hag to be sacked. All these leaks are coming out that this player's unhappy and this player to fight with this player and the dressing room's a mess and this and that. It's like other clubs, they have problems on the pitch, and that's fine. But when we have problems on the pitch, it then apparently escalates to hundreds of problems off the pitch. There's leaks, there's PR spins, there's news. When we get a big story every time things go really wrong, that Qatar's going to become the next owner of United, and we know that's always BS. We get a big PR spin, we get told we're going to sign this player and that player, and we won't sign this player and that player. And then we have stories coming out that Man United players are angry with ten Hag for how he's treated Sancho and this and that. And I just think no other top club has these leaks. It's an absolute circus, as RJ said. It's an absolute circus at the club, and it's so frustrating as well. Toxic from the top, and that's the problem. When the owners are toxic, when they don't have Manchester United's best interest in mind, everything else at the club becomes toxic. That's the big problem as well. The owners run this club so badly, they neglect this club so badly, they leave ten Hag out to dry, and the poor management of this club from those at the top, I think the players see that. The players see that basically the owners don't run the club well. They don't set a good example as well. And the leaks coming out, I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's a player leaking information, but the leaks coming out are absolutely infuriating at the moment. I mean, this leak as well here. It was said, while some players consider Erik ten Hag's stance on Sancho completely fair, the winger still has friends in the squad and they think that Sancho's been treated too harshly. There's reports coming out that certain players aren't happy with how ten Hag's treated Sancho, this and that. They think he's treated Sancho harshly. And to be honest, I think it wasn't harsh. I'll be honest with Sancho. I think Erik ten Hag needed to use Sancho to make an example to the rest of the squad that if you disrespect him, you're not going to get away with it. We have been player power FC for far too long. The players have too much of a say, and Erik ten Hag wants to put a stop to this. So, yes, it could be a harsh punishment, completely exciting Sancho to apologise, but at the end of the day, all Sancho had to do was apologise. And I don't think that's harsh, because I think if Erik ten Hag lets Sancho back after he disrespects him, the other players will realise that they can disrespect Erik ten Hag and walk all over him and he can let them back. I think Erik ten Hag needed to do that to show to the Man United players, you can't just walk all over me. You can't just act like you own me, like I am the manager, I'm in charge. Because I think certain Man United players, would like an opportunity just to completely walk over the manager as well. Alice, do you think Bruno will be replaced as captain? I don't look. I know there's reports coming out that ten Hag isn't happy with Bruno's captaincy and all of that. But again, I think that's absolutely made up PR spin. I don't think the captaincy is going to change. I think ten Hag does really like Bruno, to be honest, and more. So for me, I'm not interested in talking about a new captain or anything like that. We're not playing well, but look, I'm not interested in captaincy. Varane could be a good captain, yeah, but he's never fit and available as well. Rashford's going to be dropped, yep. And when it's a leak, it's fake news. And I think a lot of the news coming out of Manchester United at the moment is fake news as well. The media and FA are going to gang up for United to drop Maguire and Sancho. I just think the media have a thing about United. They love milking the negativity out of United. They love, basically, if there's an opportunity for them to go on United, they absolutely love it. They know that United gets clicks, and they know that they can just say a dressing room source said this and say a story as well. I think some leaks have got truth in it. Some of the leaks you can tell are true because we can see it with our own eyes. But I just think other leaks that come out, I think someone's made this up for some clicks as well. Any United news is always a big sale in the paper, yeah. And I always think it's funny that whenever we have a big loss at the weekend, Neil Custis keeps coming up with this story that the Qataris are going to buy the club in October, the Qataris are going to buy the club in November. That, for me, I don't believe anymore. I think whenever we lose a game, we get told that the players are falling out with Ten Hag and this player's had a fight with that player. And I think, have they? Because I don't remember who it was, but I remember it might have been Bruno saying actually like 90% of those. No, it was Ronaldo. Ronaldo said this. Ronaldo said, when we were Leaks FC, like we are Leaks FC at the moment, but when we had Ragnick in charge, the leaks were coming out 24/7. I've never seen leaks like it when Ragnick was in charge. And at the end of the season, Ronaldo did an interview, and he said 90% of those leaks that came out about the dressing room and the players under Ragnick, he said weren't true. And this was afterwards. Ronaldo said, yeah, these stories that this and this happened and that happened, he said weren't true. Like 90% of these leaks weren't true. So you go, is it a player leaking something that's not true to make themselves look better? Is it the media completely making something up and saying dressing room source like Samuel Luckhurst likes to do so they can have a story that's going to get clicks? Or, is Ronaldo lying? Well, I don't think Ronaldo's going to be lying when he says that 90% of the leaks aren't true. And that's the most frustrating thing. As we get all these leaks, they're absolute shambles. But a lot of them, you think, yeah, but did this happen? I think that the leak that Ten Hag can't criticise players is true because of the amount of people we know at the club that said that. I think the leak that the players are fragile and have no confidence is completely true. We can see it on the pitch. But I think the leak that this player's angry with Ten Hag for how he's treated Sancho is just made up, or it's come out from Sancho's campus PR. I think the leaks that all the players are really angry at Ten Hag has just come from Samuel Luckhurst's made up source. I think it's all a big mess when it comes to leaking news as well. If you tell the truth about what you see on the pitch, it doesn't make it a leak, which is true. That's what I mean. When we can see things like the body language is bad, I think the leak that Ten Hag and the coaches are concerned with the players' body language are true. But I think when you see this player fight with that player, you're just like, is someone making it up as well? And Man United is the only club where the manager has to prove himself to the players. Eric in, player power out. And you know what? You're absolutely right. We're the only club in the world where I feel like the manager has to prove himself to the players. They ripped Ragnick off before he came in because they said, oh, who's this guy? We've never heard of him. And they completely wrote Ragnick off before he came in. And that's because we've got too many issues with player powers. Players have to prove themselves. Managers have to prove themselves to the players. But really, the manager's in charge. And you're absolutely right. Why is the attitude of this club? Why is the mentality of this club, of these players, the manager's got to prove themselves that they're good enough to coach me? No, you're the players. You're on stupid money. You've not been good enough for years on end. You've got to prove you're good enough to wear this shirt, to wear this badge, to play for Manchester United, and most of them aren't. And that's the most frustrating thing because no other club has that kind of environment as well. We need a complete reset, and this is why we need new owners now more than ever. Because it's not about just changing a manager or dropping one player or two players or bringing in 2 new signings in January. It's not about bringing in a couple players in January. It's not even about getting this new director of football in. It's not even about sacking the manager. It's about that this club's culture is an absolute shambles. It needs a reset from top to bottom. It needs everything. And the only people that can really bring that financially is Qatar. And I think you're right with that as well. Heard the legend Steve Bruce will be the next United manager. I wouldn't be surprised if we went for Southgate though. But I want to look at this quick story here about Chisea, someone we've been looking at. It said that United, Newcastle, Villa and Bayern Munich are all in the race to sign Juventus winger Chisea. They want close to 50 million euros. 40 million pounds is a good price for the right winger. Only concern is injury crisis. And again, I think it's one of those where we're so far away from January that I'm not really interested in January transfer news. We've been linked to Chisea, we've been linked to Neto. United, we know that United are interested in a centre-back in January, and we know that United are interested in a right winger or forward in January. We know that's what Ten Hag wants, but again, the possibility on that depends on, A, if we have Qataris, there will be January investment, but I don't know if we're going to get Qataris or not, especially by January. The takeover seems to be moving slower and slower. But B, I think really, if the Glazers are still here in January, which could very well be the case, I think we're only spending if we sell. And depending on Sancho, if he has apologised, if he's not apologised, there's so many factors involved. I think, we only buy someone in January. I think if we sell, unless we have new owners in. Do you think Ten Hag would drop Rashford or Anthony for Chisea? If Chisea was one of his signings, then yeah. If he was one of his signings, then yeah, because he'd be a player that Ten Hag wants. But you've got to realise that the players that play are normally Ten Hag signings. Player power. Oh, mouse is gone. What's going on in here? Click this. There we go. Player power is a massive problem at the club. They get paid a massive wage. Other people on a lot less would not get away with this as well. But don't want Southgate. No, I don't want Southgate. That was a joke that he'd be the next manager. And that's the problem. Our players are on so much money. but they get away with so much more than players for other teams. Our players get away with apps, this, that. Our players get away with so much, and they're on so much money, and they do things like the manager has to prove they're good enough, and they leak things and they fall out and they give up. And when the going gets tough, they completely give up. It's like no other club has to deal with this. What is it about player power at United? What is it about the players thinking they're so special when they've not been good enough for years? And that's what frustrates me as well. I think the problem is you give people such high wages, you tell them amazing, you convince them they're better than they actually are, and the players think they're undroppable, and they think that when they're playing bad, it's Man United's fault. They think, oh, it's Man United's fault that I'm playing bad. Oh, it's Man United's fault when I'm playing bad. And it's actually, oh, maybe you're not good enough, or maybe you're not training hard enough. We have got some positive injury news coming in, and that is that Sergio Reguilon did train with Manchester United today, confirmed by Rob Dawson. We do have a few positive stories and stuff coming in surrounding United. First story is obviously that Reguilon did train. Kobbie Mainoo has been seen in training as well. Rashford could be dropped ahead of the game, but we do have a few interesting stories coming out ahead of tomorrow's game as well. And how many more games would the team have before Ten Hag gets sacked? Well, the thing is, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you something about this. I don't think the club can afford to sack Ten Hag. I don't think they will sack Ten Hag because I think we're so broke we can't afford to sack a new manager and bring another one in. I think they might give Ten Hag to the end of the season. I think they might, generally. And I think that would be a good thing. Even if we've come 8th this season, I think you might as well give them to the end of the season. Because one, I think that's the right decision. But two, there's no one available to replace him. I don't think United is so broke, or at least playing so broke. We have more money than we say we have. But I think United are in a position where, can they afford to sack Ten Hag? Can they afford to buy him out of his contract, bring in a new manager, spend more money on another rebuild behind a new manager? Absolutely not. I think United have got to put complete faith behind Ten Hag for a full year and just go, you know what, I hope he turns it around. I think that's what United need to do. They need to show complete faith and hope that he just goes out there and turns it around. That's what they need to do. I don't know if they'll do that, but let's hope they do as well. Alex, you should read what Miss Closer said about modern football today. I'll give that a look as well. Doom and Gloom FC. It does feel like Doom and Gloom FC as well. And we're always interested in players that we hardly get. Yeah, and that's why I'm not paying much attention to the transfer news at the moment, because we've been linked to Neto, we've been linked to Josiah, we've been linked to Todibo, Pavard, we've been linked to Todibo, Tapsoba, and Antonio Silva. And look, I'd love us to get Antonio Silva. I'd love us to get Palacios. I'd love us to get a lot of the players that we're linked to. But I'm thinking, well, who knows we're going to spend in January? Who knows who our owners are going to be in January? How many players do we get linked with? I think the transfer news at the moment is so irrelevant. I think maybe if Sancho goes, a right winger comes in. But again, I think the transfer news is so irrelevant. But the big positive story is that Reguilon trained, and hopefully Reguilon's fit to play at the weekend. And the reason I say that is because I want to see Amrabat in midfield. I really want to see Amrabat in midfield. Amrabat, we brought him because he's a midfielder. He's good on the ball. He's good at retaining possession. One of our biggest problems that no one seems to be mentioning is that we cannot retain possession in midfield. So someone like Amrabat coming in who can keep the ball, that can play the ball, that can progress the ball well. I want to see Amrabat in midfield, please. So I do really hope that Reguilon's back. I do really hope that Reguilon is fit as well. Glazonomics fans outraged. Start the spin machine. Yeah, this is the thing. Fans are annoyed. Man United all of a sudden get linked to players. Man United lose a game, fans are upset. All of a sudden we get a big Qatar takeover story. All of a sudden we're linked to this player, that player. All of a sudden Man United are going to buy this player, and Man United are going to buy that player, and Man United are going to do this, and Man United are going to do that. Oh, wow. And it's just so, boring. That's what it is. It's just boring. It's just like, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. We know we're not going to do this and that. We've lost a few games. You want to keep the heat off you, so the owners put out the spin story that we're going to do this. And it's Interested FC again. We are Interested FC again. Man United have been linked to buying this player. Man United have been linked to buying that player. Oh, yeah, Man United are going to buy this star in January. We've got no money. I mean, we do, but we've got no money that we're willing to spend. We're not going to play this player in January or that player in January. This is spin by our owners. Shaw is back. Luke Shaw is back in training, but he's not fit to play. Luke Shaw will not be kicking a football for at least another month. Luke Shaw's injury is quite long-term. I think it's to do with his broken leg and some issues. And the thing with Luke Shaw's injury is it's one of those where maybe he could play in a couple of weeks, but if he plays in a couple of weeks and it's not fully healed, he could be out for ages. So it's one of those like where United might have to say we've got to wait a couple of months to make sure he's healed, because with Lisandro Martinez, United thought he was fit to play, but it wasn't fully healed, so now he's out for another 3 months. You know, you've got to look at this Luke Shaw injury, this Lisandro Martinez injury. You've got to say, you know what, if it means they're out for a month longer, do that, because if we rush them back, they'll be out again. You know, so with Luke Shaw, we need to make sure he doesn't come back right until the very end, because I don't want us making any risks with his injury, especially because a broken leg was involved as well. I'm sure Onana will get better. De Gea wasn't great at the start. Look, I'm going to put faith in Onana to improve. I'm not going to write off Onana or any of our players 10 games into the season. I'm going to give it time. I'm going to give it patience, and I'm going to hope they succeed. But listen, people, please do hit that like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. I am going to wrap up the show here, but I will be back at 6 p.m. tonight with a Big Bash Boss show as well. So make sure you subscribe, because we will have another news show this evening after 7 o'clock. So thank you for watching. Smash a like, smash a subscribe. See you next time. Bye.